What's up, everybody? Andrew Cooper here, Fantasy Alarm. This is Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco. Lately, we've been breaking down ADP. We hit on tight ends already. We did quarterbacks. Now I bring on the legendary Heath Cummings to talk a little running back. Heath Cummings, in my personal Hall of Fame, I have to admit that going back, man, I've been listening to you, football, baseball, all of it. And I've had one question, we've had a chance to talk a couple times, but I have a question I wanted to ask you. Like being so good at this and also being likable, what's more difficult? Is it more difficult to be extremely good at this or tremendously likable?
Well, thank you. That's way too much praise. It's going to go straight to my head, and I also think that like the legendary and the Hall of Fame certainly insinuates that I'm also old and maybe washed. So
No, no,
thanks,
no, no. You're
thanks
fine.
for that.
The age
Um,
apex on fantasy analysts is crazy long. It's you can crush for a long time.
yes,
So.
the age curve works out pretty well for us, much better than it does for running backs.
Saquon Barkley
Um,
actually had someone asked him about that. They were like, "What would you do if you weren't doing this?" And he was like, I'll probably talk about football after." He's like, "Cuz he goes, you can only play football so long, but you can talk about it forever." I was like, "That's my guy, dude. That's my
you
guy."
you you can talk about it forever, and that's the thing is like if you really love football, then probably the more difficult thing is being somewhat likable. I think maybe the thing that I've really tried to lean into the last couple of years, and I certainly didn't get this early in my career, is just trying to be more me. I mean, you know this, like you do a lot of shows, and it's a heavy load to lift when you couple hours every day you're trying to put on some persona and be something else and then figure out later at night like be you again. And so I've really just tried to lean into, and that doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to be likable to everybody. There's certainly people out there that don't like me, but it's a lot easier existence when you just try to be yourself.
You're right, 100%. And you know where I learned that was doing the morning show with the Front Yard Fantasy guys, with JL and Simon. Exactly as you said, is when I first started doing it, that was a 3-hour show. And it was like at the end of 3 hours, if you're not yourself, you just spent 3 hours working. And when you're working live on stream, it's a nightmare. So just
Yeah.
100%, you got to be yourself. And lucky for us, talking ball is what we like to do. So it's actually easy, right?
It works out pretty well. Yeah. The problem is that I'm just a little bit too much of a smart aleck. And so I got to tone back that part, but the rest of it, I'll just be me.
Yeah, not on this show, you know. So when you're on with Azer and the CBS crew and whatever, then maybe you can go easy on this show. Say whatever you want, man. Because when I did the tight end show solo because I have a lot of opinions and I have a lot to say. So I did that one myself, and I'll tell you, uh, if anyone related to Colt Kmet listened to that show, they'd probably be pretty upset with me. So feel free to say whatever you want. Hey, you again, it's all in the guise of we don't. It's not like we don't like these players. We're just trying to win fantasy leagues, right? So you can say whatever you want about the ADP. Yeah. So I think we. All right. So let's get in. Let's get into some ADPs. I'm gonna
Okay.
pull up now. We're gonna go by FFPC, and we're actually looking at the Superflex. There's so many shows out there that I see talking about single QBs and all the different sites that offer that we're looking at Superflex. So not necessarily a different order, but for those that haven't played on FFPC, it's a full PPR, and it's also tight end premium, and it's also super flex. So that's going to push some of these guys down. If you're looking at the ADPs, it's not as crazy as you might think. What I did is I took them and I grouped them by not necessarily round, but by the picks and where you kind of have to make decisions, right? So this first group, first round, pretty simple. If you want these guys, you got to take them. If you have the second pick and you want Christian McCaffrey, you got to take him. If you want Breece Hall or Bijan Robinson, you got to take him. So, for you, let's assume we're doing, and we're not doing a portfolio here. Here, you and I are doing one draft that we both put in $100, $200 buy-in, something like that. If you want to get involved at my FFPC, go over there, use promo code Coop. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. Big contest you going over there. But let's say you and me, we're just picking kind of one guy that we like. Are you taking McCaffrey or are you going above and beyond on one of Hall or Robinson?
So yeah, I think when I'm looking at this and there's a 6 pick difference between McCaffrey and Breece Hall, I think I'd probably go with Breece Hall at that cost difference. I know projections wise, I have McCaffrey projected for significantly more points than Hall or Robinson, and I do think these three should kind of be in a tier of their own. But we have to acknowledge that the both injury and age risk that exists with Christian McCaffrey and the upside that Breece Hall finished as RB2 overall last year, coming off of an ACL with atrocious quarterback play and 5 rushing touchdowns. So I don't know that there should be a 6-pick difference just because McCaffrey is, in my opinion, a little bit riskier and Hall has some upside that we haven't seen yet.
Especially in full PPR. I tweeted out earlier today, I was looking at some screen numbers, right? Breece Hall, 642 yards after the catch. 30 screen passes led the league. So then I went back to look, and the past 2 years before this, 2022 and 2021, Aaron Jones was the leader in screen passes. And we know who the quarterback for Aaron Jones was and who the quarterback for Breece Hall is going to be. So I don't think much is going to change on that front.
And his explosiveness, I saw this, and I think I've seen it multiple times, but it surprises me every time. He has a rush and a catch longer than 50 yards each of the past 2 years.
Love that.
Like there's guys that go 5 years and don't have either one of those. He makes the enormous plays, and that's been mitigated a little bit by the fact his offensive play line has been terrible and his quarterback play has been terrible. And so he always has quite a few runs that don't go anywhere as well. I think what we're going to see this year with a better offensive line and with the threat of Aaron Rodgers is fewer of those negative and 0-yard plays, but the big plays are still going to happen.
In best ball, that's the format of big plays, right? You get all the good ones, don't worry about the bad ones. Before we move on to the next one, I was hanging out with my Auntie Coop, in the chat, and we were talking about guests that she liked. I was like, "You're gonna like this next guest," and she says, "You were right, Andrew. I like this gentleman. Welcome to the Auntie Coopy fan club." So you're officially stamped already. Less than 10 minutes into the show, Heath.
A gentleman. That is not. I get called a lot of things in this industry, but gentleman's not generally one of them.
That's right. Well, we'll see after the show. So then, with this next tier here, so we got Bijan Robinson going at the swing. Is there anybody in this next group that you would consider taking over Bijan then? We got Jahmyr Gibbs, pick 20, Saquon Barkley, pick 27, Jonathan Taylor, pick 28 for those listening at home. Thank you guys for checking out the podcast. You can find this wherever you find podcasts. Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco. Like, subscribe, say a little something nice. But yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, Barkley, Taylor over Bijan. Heath?
I would not consider any of these guys over Bijan. Like I said, I do think that there's a tier break after the top 3. Now, I think where I'm maybe wrong is I would include a few more running backs in this group. I understand, I guess, why Taylor and Gibbs get the boost to be in tier 2 all by themselves. They've got the upside. They've got the youth on their side. Gibbs is at least in a very good offense. I am not that interested in Saquon Barkley in this range.
Ooh, tell me why.
I don't think it's a much better situation for Barkley in some respects. The offensive line isn't going to be as good as what the Philadelphia offensive line's been the last 2 or 3 years, but it's still going to be a big upgrade over what he's played behind in New York. I don't know that there's a huge touchdown upside over what he's been, about a 10 touchdown guy for the Giants. I think he probably gets capped out around 10 touchdowns because his quarterback's going to rush for at least that many.
The quarterback scored 15 last year.
Right. And it's not a great landing spot for, like, we're talking full PPR. I don't think there's really much chance he's going to catch 60 passes. Maybe he catches 40 to 50, somewhere in that range. So I just don't think he has the upside, and he has, like, running backs at his stage of the career changing teams often goes sideways. We know that Barkley's got a relatively extensive injury history. So I think there's more risk for Barkley than there is for Gibbs or Taylor, and I don't think there's as much upside.
And I'll tell you what, man, that's the problem, is that we confuse good real life situations, the possibility of hoisting the Lombardi trophy, with fantasy football. You're right that not only does the quarterback run it himself, right? We know that teams like the Bears and the Bills and the Eagles and the Ravens have historically, with mobile quarterbacks, not really dumped it down. But Nick Sirianni doesn't even call those plays. Like when you look at running back screenplays, they were towards the bottom of the league, only 17 for the entire team right? Breece Hall, we just mentioned, got 30 by himself, right? And they've had guys. And you go back to Doug Peterson, he was calling a bunch. It's a scheme situation. So I'm with you on that. So why don't we pull up the next group then, since you sounds like you are considering some of these next guys over it. Just want to say thank you to the graphics department for these incredible graphics. Just impeccable. I made these myself. What do you think?
You did a really nice job.
I mean, could be a little flashier, but we got the FFPC colors on there. We got the promo code, and more importantly, we have the information that's important. So this next group for people listening at home, and again, if you're hearing these ADPs and saying, "What the heck?" Remember, this is Superflex tight end premium. So all the Kincaids and Laportas, and even the guys like Baker Mayfield are probably going in this range.
Right.
So this next group, we have Kyron Williams, and this is all round 4. This is where you get a big chart, like all the QBs and the hot premium tight ends are gone. And now everyone's just saying, boy, do I need a running back. Kyron Williams at 43, Travis Etienne 45, Derrick Henry 47, Devon Achane 47 as well, and then Josh Jacobs 48. So not only is this a good group of players, but it's kind of a pick your poison because they're going all together. You got to take them.
Yeah, and it's funny because I almost feel like I don't agree with the tiers on any of these players. I would take Kyron Williams and Travis Etienne ahead of Saquon Barkley. I would put them up in that tier with Taylor and with Gibbs behind them, but in the same tier. And then there's still a couple of running backs that I would rather draft than Derrick Henry, Achane, and Jacobs. I mean, Henry, some of the same concerns as Barkley. He wasn't really a pass catcher before, so maybe we don't care about that. But you're looking at best, I think, a 50% of the team's rush attempts for Derrick Henry this year. He's going to take a step back, and he's a couple of years older than Barkley. Achane, I don't really believe that the Dolphins are ever going to make him anything close to a feature back.
Yeah,
I was really
they don't need to.
I was really shook the end of last season when because you look early in the year and those monster games that he had were tremendous blowouts. Like just if it's a 3-score game,
Broncos game,
right? It's a 3-score game. He's touching it 17 times. But then you get to the final week of the regular season, a must-win game to win the division against the Bills, and Achane's role shrinks. And then you get to Kansas City in cold weather, a game where you think you might want to establish it a little bit, and Achane's role is really not that big. And then they go draft Jalen Wright, and then they extend Raheem Mostert, not in that order. Right. So yeah, I'm really super in on Kyron Williams and Etienne at this range, and out on Henry and Achane.
I love that. And the beautiful thing about you saying that you don't agree with the tiers is that we can take advantage of it. It's not to offend the graphics department because these aren't the graphics department, which is me. These are ranked. These aren't rankings. These are based on ADP. So Gibbs, Barkley, Taylor all go and pick 20, 27, 28. These guys, 43, 45, 47, 40. You can get these guys almost 20 picks later. So if you like Kyron Williams, especially in this format, you got to be loving it because you can get yourself those quarterbacks knowing that in round 3, you can reach on these guys and grab them because they're going in round 4, right? So it's a beautiful thing if you like these guys. Before we move on, I just want to ask on Josh Jacobs. I don't know. I kind of like it. I kind of like the situation there with an up-and-coming team. They paid him a lot of money, but they did draft Marshawn Lloyd and A.J. Dillon. I mean, they have A.J. Dillon, who cares, but they did draft Marshawn Lloyd. What's the concern with Jacobs, or did I miss that?
Yeah, and I didn't say anything about him because I don't have –
he's just okay in that range.
I just don't really have it's not that I think this is about where I value him. It's that I really don't know how to value him. When he first signed with the Packers, my initial impression was, well, maybe Green Bay doesn't want to have a 52-48 split at running back anymore. I mean, we've had a couple of years now of thinking, why is A.J. Dillon touching the ball so much? Can we just give Aaron Jones more touches? Maybe they just want a workhorse running back, which Jacobs was for the Raiders. And they brought back Dillon, and I didn't really like that, but I think you can give him 5 touches a game, whatever. Then they drafted Lloyd, and I didn't like. He's kind of a guy that's got a pretty specialized skill set, and so if my initial reaction was right, and they do want a workhorse running back for really the first time since LaFleur got there, then I think this is good value, and he should probably be a round 3 pick even in this format.
Yeah, I like him, man. I like the value on him a lot. And again, it goes back to what you were saying before, is that for me personally, it's not even so much that I love Jacobs, is that I look at Barkley and Derrick
Yep.
Henry and some of these other guys, and I say, I don't feel the need to overspend on those guys if I could just get this guy. Well, let's take the thoughts about Jacobs and carry them over to Group 4 then. So Jacobs is going pick 48, which just so happens to be the exact last pick of round 4. Only one running back is going in round 5. That's Isaiah Pacheco. I spelled his name incorrectly, and I apologize. The graphics team spelled his name incorrectly on here. There's only one A in Isaiah Pacheco. Sorry about that. Joe Mixon, round 6, pick 65. Rashad White, 66. James Cook, 69. And Alvin Kamara, right at the end of round 6, 72. So any of these guys that in your mind, you're like, well, I'd rather have this guy than Jacobs.
Than Jacobs, there's 3 that I would rather have. Than Henry, there's 5 that I would rather have.
Okay. So you're not going to have much Henry. And this is full PPR too. I don't really understand that.
Right. And then even than Barkley, there's 1 that I would really rather have. I think James Cook is going to have a monster season, and I absolutely love the idea of being able to get him in round 6. You look at what this offense did after the offensive coordinator change. Cook was basically 20 touches and 100 yards per game. He was basically 4 catches a game. He was 16.5 fantasy points per game in full PPR, a number 1 running back. And I think they're going to lean into that approach. Otherwise, why are they trading away Stephon Diggs? So I expect a pretty running back centric offense for the Bills, especially early in the year here. Hopefully Cook finally has just a decent touchdown season, and he might be a top 6, 7 running back in fantasy football. I also love the value. Rashad White would be my second value on this, especially full PPR. I don't know why he's in round 6.
James Cook, like classic regression candidate, right? Like this guy was like the top 5 back in yards from scrimmage. The team scores 22 rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen takes 15. Latavius Murray has 4. The shadow of Latavius Murray has 4. And James Cook scores 2 rushing touchdowns. No chance that happens again, man. No chance. That's the classic flukiness of touchdowns. He's going to, even if he has to score them from 10 yards out, he's going to have a couple of those, man. The odds of that happening are so low that I do love James Cook. Honestly, I kind of like all these guys. I just like yourself. Like, I'll give me any of them. Alvin Kamara, I don't see a world where he doesn't catch a bunch of balls again. And then Joe Mixon. Talk about falling out of the tree and bouncing off the bounciest branch and landing back towards the top of it, right? Like, to go to a scheme with Bobby Slowick and they use a fullback and they have Laramie Tunsil.
Probably
the day he got,
probably a better position than he was in.
Better. That's what I'm saying. It's just ridiculous, dude. Yeah,
no,
the ornament fell off the tree and landed as a star on the top, because those offenses, like the 49ers and the Dolphins, they're built to have a stud left tackle and a fullback, and anybody can run behind that, right?
Yeah, just go, and that's what Mixon can do. Like, he's not the most elusive guy anymore, but he'll get north and south, and he'll hit the right hole, and he'll pick up 4 or 5 yards, and he'll touch the ball 20 times a game in this offense. Yeah, I think as long as Mixon, like, he's got a little bit of age risk as well, but as long as he's still the same guy, he's going to be a top 12 running back. I think Pacheco, listen, the only thing that really worries me about Pacheco, first off, I'm not sure he should be going at the top of this group, but I like him still in that round 5, 6 range. It's just the thing that makes him so good, that angriness that he runs with, is also terrifying if he's on your fantasy team, because it's like, oh, that hit might have knocked him out. Oh,
dude, I hate it. I hate watching him. It is funny where there was one playoff game, I think it was the year before last, where he ran one up the gut and it cracked so loud. It sounded like Ohtani hitting a home run. And I was like, no, I don't like that. So I'm with you, man. That's scary, right?
Right. But if he stays healthy, I think it's a great value.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And again, for a team that liked Jerick McKinnon so much, they didn't do anything to replace the pass catching. That's what it is for me, is that if they had brought anybody in as a pass catcher, I would say Pacheco, but they didn't. So I don't really have anything to argue with there. Shout out to Mile High Luke in the chat. And in the chat, happy Memorial Day weekend. Yeah, Jim Bowden took Memorial Day off, so I'm working, but that's fun because I get to hang out with Howard Bender. Will be on tonight, Sirius XM channel 87. Hang out with us 6 to 8 p.m. And if you guys are watching on Twitter, come on over to the YouTubes. And Mile High Luke, Scampers, Toronto Dave, Anthony, Coop, everyone's hanging out in the chat. So come over to YouTube, slap a little like on there, hang out with us. So we love running back from this group. That's pretty clear. So I guess the question with this next group is, since we're kind of at least grabbing somebody from this group, do we keep drafting running backs here in this group, or is this a group we're skipping? What are you thinking? So for those listening at home, it's now we're into round 7 and 8. Kenneth Walker, pick 76, Aaron Jones, 82, Mondre Stevenson, 84, and David Montgomery right behind him at pick 85. DeAndre Swift at 88, Zamir White at 91.
And this is what, like RB 15 through 20? Is that about where we are?
Yeah, about that. I didn't count it, but it sounds right.
That sounds about right. Yeah, I agree with Ken Walker at the top of this group. If it wasn't for the risk of the new regime preferring Zach Charbonnet in some situations, I think Walker actually is pretty underrated here. But I do think you have to factor that risk in. Still, you're talking best ball, talking another home run hitter like Breece Hall. Well, I think Walker's going to be a week winner for 4 to 6 weeks this week, even if there's too much sharing. As for the rest of the group, I'd probably be okay skipping it. Definitely not taking Aaron Jones this high. Definitely not taking David Montgomery this high. I believe the Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have a larger workload, which is why we're talking about drafting him 4 or 5 rounds earlier than this. And I'm pretty just lukewarm on Ramondre Swift and Zamir White.
Yeah, with David Montgomery, what really scared me is that like on-field conversation that he had with Jahmyr Gibbs about like who's going to score the touchdown. I don't want that at all. I want David Montgomery, the guy that scores every touchdown, like
Right.
Jamal Williams was. Like, what is this? What is this rock, paper, scissors touchdown stuff? David Montgomery should get all the touch. Like the fact that that's even on the table makes me like, okay, if this guy's not scoring all those 1-yard touchdowns, if there's a pass interference in the end zone and then there's going to be some sort of coin flip on who scores, then I don't want this guy. So I don't know. He's obviously a good player. It's just, the split. Same with Kenneth Walker. It's like, I like Kenneth Walker, and I'm glad that you like him because I've drafted him a few times, but I find it so hard to get excited. He comes up and I'm just like, there he is. But it's hard for me to get pumped. But I know he's a good player, and I know he's capable of big touchdowns, right?
Yeah, and I think that's like, I think he should almost be valued higher in this format than by somebody who's just playing a regular redraft league, because you're looking for guys that are like, he has the upside to win you a week, he has the upside to win you a league, but there's just a significant amount of risk there.
Right, and we get so pumped about handcuff pluses, right? Like, we'll talk about Jaylen Warren, but no one ever talks about the fact that either of these running backs could get hurt. We're going to talk more about the handcuff minuses, because what happens if Zach Charbonnet gets hurt? Now Kenneth Walker is just awesome, and he's probably like, if Zach Charbonnet were to I'll knock on wood while saying this, if he were to suffer a season-ending injury in July, where does Kenneth Walker go in drafts in redraft in August? Right, we're talking round 2
or 3, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so something to keep in mind. It's not just the starter that can get hurt when it's already a split backfield. So there you go. Next group here, we got Group 6, the illustrious Group 6. James Conner, Najee Harris, Jonathan Brooks, Jaylen Warren, all going from pick 99 to 102. 99, 99, 100, 102. As everyone knows, as the rules dictate, the moment someone drafts Najee Harris or Jaylen Warren, the other needs to be picked, right? Like that, those are the rules.
Yes, and I've actually seen a little more separation between them when looking at like consensus rankings, with Najee like maybe 8 to 10 spots higher, and I really didn't understand it. I think Warren was still better in this format last year on a per game basis. And it, like, you're trying to predict which running back Arthur Smith is going to use. Good luck with that. I would lean Warren over Harris, and really he's probably like, we're getting late enough to where if you're arguing over a round or two or a running back spot or two, that maybe it doesn't matter that much. Connor has the big upside, and I expect he'll be the lead back as long as he stays healthy, but he's probably going to miss a third of the season. Right. Brooks could be like almost Breece Hall in the second half last year. if the ACL checks out okay and he's really earns that feature role and maybe even like a Rashad White type role in the Canales offense, that'd be fantastic. But Warren is my favorite of this group, especially in full PPR.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Jonathan Brooks, right? Because we've seen both sides of these situations.
Yep.
We've seen the guy come back, and the coaches are like, man, this guy learned the entire playbook and got healthy, and he's great. And then we've seen guys like Jameson Williams that had the injury and then they didn't come back in time. But Jonathan Brooks is on a much faster timeline than Jameson Williams was, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, there's stats to be taken here. And then, of course, Mile High Luke saying the Twilight Tour for James Conner. I love James Conner's attitude. I love him when he's healthy. But that's the thing. Keith pointed out this guy has never played the entire season. Not one time. Not one time. So,
and you just don't know, like, are those 5 or 6 games that he misses going to be the last 5 or 6? Like, it'd be more okay if it's week 3 through 8, and then we got the hammer coming back in the second half of the season.
The injuries, the way injuries work, Heath, it's much more likely to be the end of the season you missed.
Right.
Unfortunately. So, yeah, that is the rub there. And that's why James Conner to me is he's the exact kind of back that if I'm competing now in Dynasty, that's a guy I want. Because if you're competing now, your team's already loaded. If somebody gets hurt, you just pull another star off your bench, right?
Right.
So I have no problem with James Conner and Keenan Allen in Dynasty where my team's a wagon. But in best ball, and especially best ball tournaments, you get smoked if your guys aren't around for week 15, 16, 17. That's where all the money's made. So
right.
Keep that in mind. And again, just want to remind folks, if you're just joining us now, if you want to play Dynasty or best ball, the place that I like to play, FFPC, myffpc.com. Use promo code Coop. You deposit $35 or more, they'll give you 25. Little secret, most of the leagues are $35. So I would go ahead and deposit 45. They give you 25. That's 2 leagues on your buddy Coop. Go ahead. You can get in the best ball. You can grab an orphan dynasty team. You could do a startup dynasty team. Awesome spot. And as a reminder, because they have the whole orphan system where you can buy teams that people give up on, a team has never folded over there, according to our buddy Eric Bachman. So go check out myffpc.com while we get back to checking out the rest of the ADP. Group 7 here. And I kind of, these groups, some of them are going to get a little bigger. And then there's also not a huge difference between some of these groups in terms of like one to the next. So group 7 and 8, to me, Heath, are one big long group. We got Zach Moss, and this is starting round 10, folks listening at home. Zach Moss, Raheem Mostert, Javonte Williams all average out to around pick 110 or 111 based on ADP. So Zach Moss, Raheem Mostert, Javonte Williams, Tony Pollard, Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler. So we'll start with this crew, but the next crew coming up, very, very close in ADP. Is there somebody that jumps at you here?
So there's 2. My favorite right now is Tony Pollard.
Yes. I was hoping you would say that. Let's go.
Like he was on my bust list last year. I was pretty skeptical, but now it seems like the cost has fallen back into an appropriate range. Like if he's in the 55 to Tyjae Spears 45, he can still pay off at this cost, especially if the explosiveness that we saw return at the end of last year was for real. I mean, it was a small sample size, but if he's actually all the way back now and he was just hurt early at the beginning of last year, then I think we could see Pollard, even with 240 touches, produce a top 15, 18 running back season. So I love him. And then I am having such an internal war over Javonte Williams this offseason. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I have had him as high as like RB 15 and as low as RB 30. And I can't, Sean Payton's not helping me out any. I saw Benjamin Albright had tweeted out yesterday or the day before that he expects Javonte to be the 1 and Audric Estime to be the 2, which is a fantastic situation for Javonte. Do that and then just throw the ball to him 80 times. This Sean Payton offense, well, I don't really think he did a very good job last year. His offense always, like 33% of the targets are going to running backs, and they're going to touch it a bunch in the running game. And so if Javonte is the 1, and even if it's, again, a 60% split, I think he's the cheapest back you'll find with top 12 upside. But Sean Payton could decide that he hates him in week 2, and we never see him again.
Sean Payton, he hasn't changed his mind like Adam Notice, doesn't he? He didn't fire Brandon McManus after like 2 days, right? Like not that Sean Payton that traded Jerry Jeudy and and ate a bunch of money getting a new quarterback. Like, yeah, that's the scary thing, man. And the offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi, is so fully in line with what you're talking about, too, because his
Right.
offenses with Austin Eckler, and even when he was with the Lions, 178 targets to the running backs all those years. So, like, the targets are there, but you're right. It scares me. I got Sean Payton talking to me about Blake Watson in one ear, and I got Derek Brown won't shut up about Jaleel McLaughlin in my other ear over at Fantasy Pros. And I just like it's stopping me from doing what I want to do. Heath. I'm with you. Like I just want to take him, but he scares me. And of course, Mile High Luke in the chat throwing out the red flag equal Javante just to make us feel very, very nice there.
Well, you know what though, but in round 10, I will plant that red flag, and I'm
Yeah.
just going to say, you know what, the upside is worth the cost.
It's worth it, man. And Tony Pollard, just on your point for that leg injury, I looked into a little bit, and people talk about this like tightrope surgery, which honestly, it's kind of like Tommy John. Don't Google it. It's kind of gross. But they basically like try and fix your leg quickly when you have a high ankle sprain with this like literal like acrylic rope. And there's been mixed results on that. There's been some guys that bounce right back, and then a couple guys, namely just last year, Tony Pollard and also Darnell Mooney had that surgery and did not look good for a while. Tony Pollard
Right.
himself said week 11, right, was when he started feeling good. So, we'll have to be really careful with that injury moving forward. I'm not a doctor, but I have Google. So I've seen I've seen what these surgeries look like. It's an invasive procedure. So you got to be really careful. Last one I want to ask you about, because it's very difficult to talk about Nick Chubb. We just don't know. With Austin Eckler, I've heard from him himself that the plan is but Brian Robinson on early downs in the quote unquote Melvin Gordon role. The running back coach for that team is Anthony Lynn, who is his coach with the Chargers, and he says he's going to be the pass catching back that if he gets the ball in space in the red zone, he's going to score. What are your thoughts on a guy that we kind of know what the deal is, but it's not perfect, but for this format, not too bad, I guess.
Like we have definitely seen Anthony Lynn in multiple places produce 2 starting running backs out of the same offense.
Right.
It's like the Sean Payton situation. There's gonna be such a huge number of running back opportunities available that 2 guys can chop it up, but the offense is gonna have to be good, and I'm not sure that's going to be the case. And I worry a little bit about combining Anthony Lynn's idea of targeting running backs with Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, that's a problem, dude. If this was JJ McCarthy, how nice would that be?
Right.
That better.
So I think I'm probably not going to draft like round 11's fine. If you like him, go get him. But he's not a guy I'm targeting really at any point in the draft. He's around RB 30, 32 for me. I don't have a lot of hope for the touchdowns. I think Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson probably score most of the touchdowns on the ground. So I'm probably staying away.
Yeah, the more I think about it, there's probably specific builds that you like Eckler. If you let's say you start your draft with, you have like a ton of high risk guys like Jonathan Brooks and Raheem Mostert. In a full PPR like this, he's a floor play. You draft him here and know you got somebody, and then you kind of have a license to go with high upside. But you're right, it's not super exciting. I mean, the days of him scoring 20 touchdowns probably over, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Next group. Let's go. So I mentioned that this group is, to me, kind of a big, again, to steal a term from you and the gang over there, a big glob.
Yes.
Right. But you have Austin Eckler going to pick 123. Trey Benson's pick 124. And then it goes Brian Robinson, Tajay Spears, Devin Singletary, Chase Brown, all in the 11th round. And Gus Edwards right at the top of the 12th. So I put him in here as well. So even though it's group 7, group 8, based on how our incredible graphics department decided to group these guys, it really is just one big group. So is there anybody from this group that you say, hey, you know what? I know that this is based on ADP, but this guy should be in that group?
No, I think that the
agree.
drafters have done like as close as these guys might be by ADP. I think the drafters have done a pretty good job of separating them out. Like Benson, if something happens to James Conner, I love that situation. Spears, if something happens to Tony Pollard. Robinson, if something happens to Austin Eckler. I think Singletary is going to probably has the highest floor out of this group, but I'm not sure how excited I am in that floor as a less explosive version of Saquon Barkley and a terrible Giants offense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, man, is that Singletary, that's one where he to me, he sticks out, and then the more you think about it, he just fades back into the bushes like that Homer Simpson
Yes.
meme, right? It's just like he jumps out. It's like, "Oh, there's a starting running back in there." And then you start thinking about what's going on over there, and you're like, "Oh,
Singletary is the kind of guy who I think if you're drafting off of projections, you're going to probably overdraft. I go through the whole like projecting every player on every team, and he projects much higher than I rank him. But that can get you in a lot of trouble when, like, yeah, you're going to get that 11 and a half points per game that he projects for, but how many times is that going to help you, especially in best ball?
yeah, exactly." And I'll tell you what, it's not gonna be fun to watch. So if that's what you're doing and you're just trying to have some fun out here, I don't know how fun that's gonna be. And I will say last thing on this group is that you kind of got it's like the Schrodinger's Trey Benson here, where if you don't draft him, James Conner will get hurt because he always does. But if you do draft him, this will probably be the one time James Conner doesn't get hurt, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Or like we said, he's going to get hurt from weeks 3 through 6, and you're going to get the tease of Trey Benson, and
yeah,
then he's going to go
exactly.
back in the box.
Oh yeah, that'll be just great for Dynasty Twitter, right? Just to have 3 weeks of amazing Trey Benson, then he goes back in the bottle, and then James Conner is back next year. That would be just perfect. We need more of those guys. We need more Jalen Warrens floating around out there. So I hope you're right on that one. That'd be great for us. That'd be great for us in Twitter. Group 9 here, and there is a bit of a break here from this group to that group. Now we're into round 12. These FFPC drafts go deep, baby. They go 20 plus rounds. We're not going to get into it. We'll see how far we go. We might be able to throw a couple darts. But in this group, round 12, all these guys go round 12. Then Zach Charbonnet goes right at the swing. Zeke Elliott, Jerome Ford, rookie Blake Corum out of Michigan, Kendre Miller, and then Zach Charbonnet. Anybody you love in here? Anybody you hate?
I wouldn't say hate. We're too late for hate, but
Okay.
I'm not a big. I don't think I would put Kendre Miller in this group.
Okay.
I
Thank you,
do
because I don't get it. I don't get it.
right.
Well, people love him, but I don't
No,
know. I don't know the path.
I'm not even sure that one injury makes him a fantasy starter,
Right.
for certain. Charbonnet is definitely my favorite of the group because I do think that, like I said, a different new regime, there's a chance that he just has a bigger role right out of the gate. And if something happens to Walker, then he's absolutely awesome. And I think Zeke is perfectly fine here. I expect that Zeke's probably going to touch the ball 15 to 18 times a game. And if he doesn't get hurt, he's probably going to score double digit touchdowns. And everybody's going to hate it because he's averaging 3.3 yards per carry, but he's probably a low end starting running back.
The best. That is the best. That is the exact description of Zeke Elliott. He got 65 targets last year.
There you go.
65 targets, right?
Throw him
And
the
it just
ball.
yeah, 1 yard screens for nothing. And you know what? Full PPR, I'll actually take that in round 12. So
And
I'm with you.
it sounds like based on the metrics, he's not even that good at blocking anymore, but all the coaches still think he is. So he gets to play on all the third downs.
Right. The metrics do show that he's just kind of you need that short area burst to pick up blitzes at times. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm still in. I'm still like if these teams are in, I'm in.
That's right.
Volume's king, man. So I'm with you. Jerome Ford. I mean, I don't know. I'm rooting for Nick Chubb to be back. They brought in Donta Foreman. I don't think Jerome Ford's particularly impressive. Even if all those guys weren't there, I look at Jerome Ford and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. He's probably close. Like I like him more than Miller, but he's probably closer to Miller than the rest of the group.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of out. I'm in where you're in. I'm out. And again, it's round 12, so you can do whatever you want. You don't have to take these guys. But Charbonnet, full PPR, definitely the guy that's interesting. The next group here, J.K. Dobbins. So now we're into the land of like just bonkers town. Who knows what's going to happen with J.K. Dobbins coming off serious injuries? Jalen Wright, a rookie in an incredibly explosive offense, and he's an explosive player, but they got a bunch of those over there. Rico Dowdle, who again, same thing with Zeke, just kind of hanging out in a place where no one's hanging out. Marshawn Lloyd, that we like, but landed behind Josh Jacobs, and then Antonio Gibson, who he's going to be returning kicks, but also could potentially carve out a role, right? So when you look around this group here, picks 150 to 160 going in round 13 to 14.
I think I want to draft a running back in round 13 and 14. I like these values for the most part. Like Dobbins is a complete dart throw, but he's a high upside dart throw if it happens. Same thing with Jalen Wright. Like you want to get that fast guy in that Mike McDaniel offense. Dowdle could just beat out Zeke at week 4 if they tied Jerry up in the closet or something. And I don't dislike the value on Antonio Gibson either. I think Lloyd's the one that I'm probably out on at this range.
Yeah, I'm with you too, and it's just because of the money for Jacobs and everything that, again, you're just drafting a pure handcuff. He does kind of similar things, right? But these other guys, I mean, J.K. Dobbins, this is the format for Jalen Wright and J.K. Dobbins, right? Because he scores a 60-yard touchdown, he's in your lineup. And if
Yep.
he doesn't, then you don't set a lineup. So it doesn't really matter that much. I'm with you on that. And
You want to
as
start
a
them
question,
every week when you should.
but yeah, exactly, dude. Yeah, redraft. This is nightmare tier, right? This is crazy town. But for best ball, yeah, I like it. Ann has a question in the chat, and I've actually had a couple people in drafts that we've been doing live talk about this strategy. We had somebody draft Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet in best ball. Are you ever just kind of taking the two? Again, it's tough with like the Dolphins where there's 3 guys. But are you ever just kinda looking at guys that are all going cheap and saying, "I'll take them both"? Do you ever do that?
I mean, I think the stock answer is you're limiting your upside because what you'd like to have is you get right on that guy and you're right on the other guy. What my answer would be is I don't want to do that with Walker and Charbonnet. I don't want to do it with Spears and Pollard, with
Yeah.
guys that cost a little bit more. But if I'm doing it in round 13 with Zeke and round 14 with Dowdle, then I like that a little bit better because I feel like I've got
Sure.
a much better chance. If I can turn a 12th and a 13th into one starting running back, that's great. If I turn a 4th and an 8th into one starting running back, that's not near as good.
Right, and, you know what? It's like there's no good running backs out in free agency. No one's gonna trade the Cowboys a running back. No
Right.
one's gonna help these guys, right? No one's helping these guys out,
No.
so it just doesn't happen. And running backs get hurt too much for you to do that. The moment you trade away one of your running backs, one of them gets hurt. Like
Yep.
that's the laws of physics. So I'm with you on that. It is tough in this format, but if you're gonna do it, wait and do it at that point. And in Dynasty, I will say, if you're like I do like getting, cornering a backfield in Dynasty, but it's gotta be players I like. So
Right.
yeah, I love having Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet and hoping one of them leaves. And now I got 2.
Yep.
That's not the situation. That's not a Zeke and Pollard situation. Sorry, Zeke and Dowdle, where you're
No.
gonna have, it's the you're
Complete
the
like the best ball in the dynasty worlds often mirror them in completely opposite ways, and that's one
right.
of them.
Yeah, you don't want to do that there. So that's where we live on that. Now we're getting deep, but there's gems out here. Group 11, you see Ray Davis go, Tyler Algier, Ty Chandler, and kind of the one of the Twitter hype beasts this offseason, Kamani Vidal. Great combine. What's your thoughts on this crew? Who are you most likely to take?
Chandler is the one I'm most likely to take just because he only needs one injury to a 29-year-old running back. I would like Vidal's situation a lot better if we hadn't just brought in 2 of Greg Roman's former players.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like his chances unless and listen, Dobbins may just not be the same guy, and Gus Edwards is 30, and so then all of a sudden things open up. He's probably my second favorite. I'm not a big Ray Davis guy, and I want to just pretend like Tyler Algier is not going to matter anymore. Chandler would be my favorite, and just hope that he ends up in a spot where he's getting 15 touches, and I think he'd be pretty good. And I'd put Vidal second.
Yeah, I'm reading all this stuff about like Christian Watson and the Packers and Eric Stokes going to do like the hamstring study
Yeah.
at Wisconsin, and I'm like, man, Aaron Jones just missed the study. He was like
Yes.
they should grandfather him in as a Packer. He should be able to go and do that because that's been his problem, and that's honestly at his age with hamstrings every year that's going to be rough. So I think I'm with you on that, and I do end up picking the Kamani code in a couple spots, mostly out of FOMO.
Right.
It's like Jim Harbaugh coming back to the NFL. You have to feel. I just feel like a lot of these undrafted free agents that he's bringing in, uh, like Cornelius Johnson and Leon Johnson, whoever, it doesn't matter. Like I just feel like those guys do have an advantage because their coach is coming from college and he's probably recruited a couple of these guys, familiar with these guys. So I don't know. If I'm taking stabs, I do like the idea, but Kamani Vidal is now being drafted with guys that we know are going to play. We don't even know if this guy's going to make the team.
Right.
So be very careful with that. You know, Ty Chandler's on the team. He's going to get the football. Kamani
Right.
Vidal, we don't even know if he's going to be playing football. So be careful there. I remember there was a guy for the Raiders that his name was Warren something, and all preseason he was lighting it up, crush it, just absolute preseason superstar. Reddit was going crazy, and then he didn't even make the team. So you got to be real
Yes.
careful. Chris Warren, remember the Chris Warren type?
Yeah.
Yeah. So be careful with those guys. That's all I'm saying. There's a lot of Darwin Thompsons out there, and you forget the hype. Next group here, Group 12, Bucky Irvin, Tyrone Tracy, who went to the Giants, Jaleel McLaughlin, who everybody seems to like, but except maybe not Sean Payton. We'll see. Roshan Johnson, who the DeAndre Swift signing kind of stole some thunder there, and then Chuba Hubbard. Again, they drafted Jonathan Brooks, but he was a starter last year. This group, Heath.
Jaleel McLaughlin's definitely my favorite.
Yeah.
If it's okay to be a Javonte Williams guy and a Jaleel McLaughlin guy, I am that. And so I would definitely put him at the top.
Let's ask the judges. Judges, is it allowed? It's allowed.
It's allowed. There's enough touches in a Sean Payton offense for running backs. We can have them both as long as the other guys get out of the way. I'll take Tracy second just because of the lack. Like a lot of times we see these league-winning waiver wire running backs are not necessarily the guys in the great offenses. It's the guys behind the suspect starters. And Singletary is about as suspect as a starter as you get. So I'll take Tracy second. And then probably Bucky Irving. I don't really think the Rachaad White yards per carry or efficiency concerns matter all that much to Tampa. But if they did and Irving got off to a good start, then maybe we see more of him than we're expecting. I'm mostly just pretending like Roshan Johnson and Chuba Hubbard aren't going to matter.
Right. I'm with you on that. Roshan is, and it's even worse for Dynasty because he's stuck under contract. At least Khalil Herbert can leave. Right. Roshan's stuck behind him. And I will say this to your point on Jaleel McLaughlin. Last year, you had basically 50 targets for Javonte, 50 targets for Piron, and 38 for Jaleel McLaughlin. And once upon a time, this offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi, with the Lions, had an offense where Theo Riddick got 50 targets, Reggie Bush got 50 targets, and Joique Bell also got 50 targets. So this group here, and then again, we saw with Lombardi, and I think so with Sean Payton, I think Lombardi was there too when Mark Ingram and Kamara were both RB1s. So they're not afraid to mix and match. They're definitely not afraid to throw the ball to the right. And then Tyrone Tracy, of course, converted wide receiver. I will continue to fall for that trap until I'm bored. It's so funny because it never happens, right? And everyone's like, "Oh, he'll just play slot." Never happens.
No.
Antonio Gibson and all that, but I don't care. One of these days, Heath, converted wide receiver to running backs can have a bunch of targets, right?
It's going to work great.
It's going to work once. Maybe this is the time, but probably not. Group 13 here, Khalil Herbert, Keaton Mitchell, Elijah Mitchell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then Damian Pierce. We are into the dregs. And I believe after this, I just have maybe one more slide. I have one more slide after this that's just the whatever's out there after pick 200. But anybody here that's like, yeah, I got to have it, or are we already into the whoever?
I think they're all appropriately priced backup running backs there's lots of upside here if there's an injury. My favorite would be Keaton Mitchell, partially because the guy in front of him is 30, partially because I think Keaton Mitchell at times is almost as impressive as Achane. Now he's coming off the ACL, so it might be a second half of the season thing, but I could see big upside for Mitchell.
Yeah, Keaton Mitchell, people forget. You go back. I went back to watch. I've been throwing on games, like the condensed games in the background while I'm like typing or whatever, and just kind of watching a few things. Keaton Mitchell they were throwing him bombs. He was thrown balls 30, 40 yards downfield. And a couple of them, he ran nice routes and it wasn't a great throw. One of them, it was good defense, but like this guy could have had a couple big plays that didn't happen. And just the fact that they're dialing those up is kind of intriguing. Like how often do you see rookie running backs? They're like, yeah, go run a fly route and we'll chuck it up to you.
I like a lot of times they don't even want to throw screens to rookies. They're throwing like downfield targets. I love it.
I heard a podcast the other day with Cole Beasley, and he was talking about Gabe Davis. He's like, that guy's so smart. He's like, usually rookies are so stupid. It just made me laugh. I'm just like, it kind of, I mean, it's tough. It's a tough game. You're learning a whole new language, but it's just funny to hear that. He's like, yeah, rookies, man, they don't know what they're doing. So definitely interesting. All right, let's get to the last pot here and we'll get you out of here. And love you in the chat. And says, don't forget to hit the like button. And that is honestly huge for us. If you my dog Lufa loves it too, dude. Fire it up. Fire up that like button, hit that subscribe button on YouTube and on your podcast locations, wherever you get them. That's huge for us and it's free. Obviously, if you can be a Fantasy Alarm member like Ann, or even just buy the best ball guide, which is available now, that supports us, right? That supports us financially, and it's the most important thing. It's huge. But a retweet, a like, a subscribe, a follow here or there, man, that means the world to me, and I'm sure it means the world to you guys as well, Heath, over at CBS. That's the kind of support that anybody can do. It costs you nothing. So really appreciate you guys and just hanging out with us, dude. It's a lot of fun, man. It's the best hanging out with you guys. Yeah, Toronto Dave. Shout out Lufa. Shout out to the Toronto area. So here we go. Let's wrap this up. We'll get you out. Deep target range, and we're talking deep. But in these FFPCs, you got to go like 22 rounds. So Will Shipley, Isaac Grendo, Donta Foreman, Tank Bigsby, Alexander Madison, Audric Estime, Dylan Labe, Kenneth Gainwell, Braylon Allen, Miles Sanders, Rasheen Ali, Samaje Perine. And then we're talking after this group, people are actually drafting Blake Watson. So that's where I drew the line. That like Sean Payton says one thing and people are drafting that guy, right? So now we're into the deep rumor mill, but names in this group, if you fell asleep at the keyboard and realized you only have 3 running backs and you have to use your last 2 picks on running backs, give me the picks. You have to
Oof. Like, I think I probably lost the league and I'm just mad at myself.
yeah,
But
you're mad. These are angry picks, but you have to make them.
right. I'll take Audric Estime and I will
Okay.
take
Yeah.
Braylon Allen.
All right.
I definitely think Allen's going to need an injury, and I hope that Breece Hall never has another injury again. But Allen has the type of profile that he could be. I think he could be successful in that offense, and he could do some of the same work on screen passes that Hall's done, just less efficiently. And who knows what Sean Payton's going to do at running back? So might as well draft another Bronco.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There's so many, and I keep forgetting he's in there too. Man. Yikes.
Thankfully, Samaje Perine will hopefully be gone soon. But
Please. Just get out of here. Yeah, Braylon Allen, big dog, classic Wisconsin guy. Shout out to Pat Fitz. Again, you know what? If they traded away Michael Carter, obviously probably don't love Izzy Abanikanda if they're going
not
out
as
and
much as
grabbing
we all
him.
did.
No, apparently not. Yeah, they keep doing that to us, right? Like they're drafting these guys in the first place. We liked Michael Carter, 3rd-round pick, and they're like,
Yeah.
they take Breece Hall. It's like they're rug pulling us every time. So, yeah. So okay, and then Dylan Lobby's got some smoke, but yeah, Lobby season in the chat. There they are. And again, he's with the Chargers, so who knows? I've been throwing some darts at him, but again, you never know. But yeah, that's deep. We've gone deep on this one, Heath. You covered the entire landscape, man. Appreciate you coming on. Real quick, everyone knows you're at CBS and you're a star, but just let everybody know what you guys got going on over there and what they can look for.
Yeah, I'm really deep in the dynasty content this type of year. So we've got 2 Fantasy Football Today dynasty episodes on Tuesday and Friday each week. I'm updating my dynasty rankings right now. Just updated the wide receiver rankings today. Got running back, quarterback, tight end coming next week. We're doing more mock drafts. You can find all of that first the podcast wherever you find podcasts, and go to cbssports.com. Look at the top right-hand corner of the fantasy page, see Dynasty Central, and that's where all the Dynasty content is.
Yeah, let's go, dude. Now's the time. So thank you, Heath. You're the man. You guys hanging out with us in the chat. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. And all the Fantasy Law members out there, we love you. Stay tuned. Tonight, I'll be on Sirius XM with Howard Bender, channel 87, and we're doing a live best ball draft. But until then,